What's going on, guys? Some of y'all have hit me up and asked me where do I get the figurines that you see in the background for some of my videos, and the answer is I use websites like phantomos.com in order to purchase high quality statues without actually paying top dollar for them. I highly recommend checking them out. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video, guys. What if Neji never died? How would the Naruto story change? Would it be for better or would it be for worse? In this very highly requested edition of Naruto What If, I plan to look at just that. Back in 2012, when chapter 614 was being released, the fallout from Neji's death in the Naruto community was enormous. What did Kishimoto just do was the predominant question immediately afterwards and in the weeks that followed. To paint a picture for you, back then, there were more people convinced that Obito would kill Sakura instead of anyone else. The reason being is that she was Naruto's well-known crush, just like Rin was to Obito. Kishimoto made it clear that Obito planned to push Naruto to the darkest corners by pushing him emotionally, and Kishimoto does have his penchant for parallels, so it made even more sense that Sakura would play the Rin role. However, Kishimoto went another direction. Instead, he recreated the deaths of Minato and Kushina by having Neji and Hinata step in front of Naruto, with the outcome being that the Jubi killed Neji. This brings us to the ultimate question and the topic of today's video. What if Neji never died? Now, how would this happen without completely changing Obito's motives, which were fueled even more so by having the real Mamoru Uchiha at his side and having Obito just relive Ren's death in his mind a few chapters ago. For the purpose of not changing Obito's character or his motives, I will not be looking at a scenario where Obito chooses not to target Naruto, Hinata, and Neji at point blank range. Unfortunately, with all the other shinobi in close proximity to Naruto, either dead or struggling to avoid the attacks of the Ten Tails, this would mean that Hinata's father would be unable to play the same role that Neji did. In this scenario, Hinata would still be the first to arrive to shield Naruto from the attack, and like her father stated, neither she or Neji would be able to use the rotation fast enough to block the attack. This leaves us with two options. Option 1, Neji jumps forward as well, but at the last minute uses a substitution ninjutsu, which in turn causes the Ten Tails attack to rip through the substitution log, which means that Hinata still dies. Scenario 2 is that Neji, who is positioned closer to the Ten Tails than anyone else, with his arms raised in defense, would pivot a second too slow to save Naruto and Hinata. Given that Neji not only had to turn around, but also literally jump into the path of the attack, this would mean that Hinata would be the only one who rushes forward to save Naruto. However, Hinata would have her arms stretched out and the spear would rip through her chest, stopping just inches from Naruto's face. As the blood sputtered from her mouth, and from her open wound, splotches of it would splash across Naruto's face, while Hinata slowly dropped to her knees. Just as Neji had, her father would be rooted in shock as he watched his oldest daughter in her last moments. While the rest of the Shinobi Alliance attacked the Jubi, Naruto would scream out in agony for help. Just before Hinata died, she would reach out to hold Naruto's hand, just like she promised herself she would do when the Shinobi Alliance was rushing desperately to give Naruto backup. Her last, dying words would be her confession of love towards Naruto. Both Neji and her father would rush at her side. While the split occurs inside of the Hyuga clan, some would be too stunned to move, and others would rush to attack the pinned down Ten Tails in rage, with their blood boiling seeing that the heir of the Hyuga clan was dead. As Hinata's father cradled her warm and sticky body, blood eking right into his clothes, Naruto would watch on in stunned silence as he struggled to grasp what just happened. Hinata, she was dead. She just confessed her love for him, which would bring back his memory of her doing so in the Pain arc. Obito would still mock Naruto, reminding him that he said that he wouldn't let any of his friends die. Naruto would slowly take in the numerous bodies, seemingly dead as far as his eyes could see, while Obito reminded Naruto that he was all alone, reminding him of the death of his parents and his master Jiraiya. The news of Hinata's death would reach her peers. Naruto would watch on as Mamoru Uchiha smirked just as he did in the manga, noting that Obito reminded him of his old self, and how Naruto giving into despair would break the Shinobi Alliance. However, Neji would play the role that Hinata did, but instead of grabbing his hand and smacking him, Neji would grab Naruto by the collar and talk sense into him as he talked him from the edge of the abyss. He would tell Naruto how deeply Hinata loved him, and how she once again decided that Naruto's life was more important than her own, and remind Naruto that he is the key to winning the war. He would slightly patronize him for spacing out yet again, and remind him that both Neji and Hinata's father told him not to do so because people died in war. Tears would well up in Neji's eyes as he forced Naruto to look at Hinata's body, telling him that they would give their lives for Naruto if it means winning the war, but that Hinata would do so 100 times over if she knew that it would keep Naruto safe. Finally, he would quote Naruto's Nindo to him to never go back on his word, which means that the Kyuubi would join in on rebuilding Naruto's broken spirit. As Naruto thought of his parents, as well as all the other shinobi who died believing in him, he would place his hand on Neji's shoulder as he activated his Kyuubi chakra mode. From here, not much would change, which means that Naruto's shadow clones would pass on chakra to all the other Shinobi Alliance members. Like Hinata did originally, Neji would be the first to attack the Jubi, blowing back its arm into its body, which would cause Mamoru Uchiha and Obito to react to the massive power boost that was received. Because Neji is a genius, Neji would lead the immediate counterattack, while Shikamaru and Ino both relive their father's dying words, just like they did in chapter 616, before they put into action the plan that they received from their fathers. Depending on where Neji would be, he may or may not have noticed the dislocation in Naruto's shoulder, which would have hampered Naruto's ability to use the Rasen Shuriken to some degree that he'd already formed with his hands. Assuming that Naruto can still throw the jutsu, the attack wouldn't be a direct hit on Obito, but it would likely still be close enough that Obito would have to use his Kamui to avoid the edges of the attack, and would still sever his link to the Jubi. Lee would still land a solid hit on Madara, forcing him to use the reanimation ability to regenerate. With more damage being done to his shoulder, Naruto would seek out Sakura to repair him. From here, not much would change. While the Shinobi Alliance fought with the Jubi, Sasuke would go on to meet with the Hokages and then return to the battlefield with the Kages in tow. By the time Naruto has the Kyuubi extracted from him, Neji would watch on with a mixture of shock and anger as Gaara flew off with Naruto and Sakura. Hinata had given her life and now Naruto was dying. Because he would be too consumed with thoughts of destiny, he wouldn't trip over the almighty rock that caused Hinata to fall flat on her face in the manga. With Neji still being alive, he would also be able to bear witness to Might Guy going 8 gates as he battled the most powerful version of Mamoru Uchiha to within an inch of his life. Naruto and Sasuke would still receive their powers from the Sage of Six Paths, and Madara would still be betrayed by Black Zetsu after he launched the Infinite Tsukiyomi. The battle with Kage and Team 7 would be just as intense as it ever was, which means that Obito would still give his life in the process, thus making Naruto call him the coolest guy ever. The final battle between Naruto and Sasuke would still go on, with Naruto finally making his rival admit defeat after the iconic Chidori vs. Rasengan clash. In the aftermath of the war, Naruto would stand just behind the Hyuga clan as Hinata and all the other dead ninja were put to rest. Sasuke would still be placed in prison during the remaining tenure of Tsunade's time as Hokage, until Tsunade gives Kakashi the role of 6th Hokage, and Naruto pleads once again for Sasuke to be forgiven for his crimes. Just like in the original story, the news that Naruto is the son of the 4th Hokage will be made public knowledge, which might cause Neji to double down on his belief that we are all bound by destiny, especially if Neji learns that Naruto is the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths son. 2 years later, Toneri would still arrive on Earth, but this is where things get really tricky. In the novelization for Naruto the Last, it is implicitly stated that Toneri was after Hanabi's Byakugan because it was a quote pure and fresh end quote Byakugan. The novel makes it pretty clear that Toneri was set on marrying Hinata because his father told him to make her his bride 10 years ago. The novel also makes it very clear that Toneri required a younger and purer Byakugan to activate the Tensegan, which is why he didn't take the eyes of some random Hyuga, but instead focused on Hanabi's. Hinata being dead causes a lot of problems. It is directly stated in the novelization that Hinata was the only person who could destroy the Tensegan. With Hinata dead, there will be no one around to do this, unless you interpret the words of Hamura to mean that anyone from the main branch of the Hyuga clan is able to destroy the Tensegan. Regardless, this leads us to yet another potential problem. Originally, Toneri brought Hinata to the rebirth chamber with the intention of placing her and he into the cradle-shaped device that was referred to as the Ark, where he would go on with this plan to destroy the earth and rebuild it, repopulating the human race in a way that he and Hinata would serve the role of being the Adam and Eve of the Naruto verse. With Hinata being dead, it's very possible that Toneri moves to destroy the earth sooner with the intention of repopulating it, especially if he does indeed decide to use Hanabi to be his bride, meant to help him repopulate the earth after he destroys it. In either case, Toneri's Tensegan wouldn't have fully awakened shortly after Naruto entered the rebirth chamber. The pain that Toneri faced was enough to cripple him, which leads us to a couple of scenarios. Naruto would likely move to kill Toneri during this period, thus erasing the need for a final battle between Toneri and Naruto. However, any puppets that were created would have been taken care of by Naruto if he would have been aware. Scenario 2 is that Naruto fails to kill Toneri, who's swooped away by the puppets. However, the Tensegan would be left undestroyed. If Naruto does indeed try to destroy it, simply because it looked ominous, then all of Naruto's chakra would be extracted because only someone of the main branch can touch the Tensegan. Though Naruto would be able to cling on to his life long enough to warn his teammates, which may include Neji in the place of Hinata, not to touch the Tensegan, it would mean that there would be no one left to stop Toneri. In my opinion, I don't foresee Naruto attempting to destroy it. Instead, I believe that he would make note of it and then act to return Hanabi to his teammates where Sakura could heal her. It's in my opinion that with the first of their two missions being complete, with the first being that Hanabi needs to be rescued and the second being that they need to stop the moon, then their attention would be split. Toneri would need to be dealt with, but Shikamaru would also know that the Tensegan is likely key to his plan, and since it's unclear if a seal can be used to do away with the Tensegan, then most likely the plan would be to force Toneri to tell them how to stop it, because Shikamaru would know better than to attempt to destroy an unknown object without having all of the facts. While the battle with Naruto versus Toneri rages on, Kakashi would face an even bigger problem. The moon would still be rushing towards the earth because Hinata wouldn't have been there to destroy the Tensegan, giving the Raikage even more leverage to use his chakra space time cannon to destroy the moon. Assuming that Kakashi still buys time for Naruto and company, the fight would have even more stakes than it did in the original story. This brings us to our final three outcomes, each which are very drastically different than what we've gotten in the original story. In scenario 1, Scenario is forced to admit that the descendant of Hamura needs to destroy the Tensegan. It is at this point that Shikamaru would come to the conclusion that Hanabi might be able to destroy the Tensegan because she's a descendant of the main branch, which would cause Sakura to rip out Toneri's eyes and implant them back into Hanabi. After she fails to destroy the Tensegan on her own, Naruto would fuel his chakra into her and then they would go on to return back to the earth. In scenario 2, the story takes a potentially more drastic turn. If we go by the actual story, particularly the novelization for the movie, it is directly stated by Hamura and by a couple of other characters that Hinata Hyuga herself is the only one who can destroy the Tensegan. If that is indeed the case, then Naruto and the others would fail to destroy the Tensegan, though there is a very strong argument that can be made that Hanabi being born into the main family would allow her to do so. With their allotted time up, Naruto and the others would look up to see a beam of light rushing towards them as the space-time chakra cannon blows up the moon, thus saving the world at the cost of Naruto Uzumaki and his teammates. In scenario 3, a similar outcome to scenario 2 occurs, being that Toneri refuses to give up the information due to the torture. In my opinion, Because of how much emphasis is placed on Hinata being the only one who can destroy the Tensegan, I believe scenario 2 is the likely one, though for the sake of taking this video a little longer, I'm gonna go with the warm and bubbly approach and continue on with scenario 1. In the years afterwards, Naruto would continue taking on highly requested missions and doing special instruction at the academy, while also being prepared by Tsunade and Kakashi to one day take on the role of 7th Hokage. Due to the genjutsu of memories that he would have experienced on his way to Tsuneri's castle, Naruto would recall Hinata's initial confession as well as her death, which would make him come to the realization that it was Hinata Hyuga that he loved and not Sakura Haruno, which would lead him to becoming closer to Neji. By the time Naruto becomes Hokage, Naruto wouldn't have been married to Hinata, which means that the children of their union would never have been born. A very strong case can be made that Tenten would have wound up with Neji, which means that Neji would likely have a child. By the time Momoshiki and Kinshinki attack, Naruto would have even more of a need to destroy Momoshiki and Kinshinki while protecting the villagers, since he would view the villagers as his family, and he would have used them to fill the void that he felt in his heart with Hinata being dead. Ironically, with no Boruto Uzumaki being alive, this would mean that there would be no ninjutsu to be absorbed, which means that after Naruto and Sasuke defeated Momoshiki, he likely would have been killed off. After returning to Konoha, Naruto would look over the Hidden Leaf Village with the vow to protect the only family that he has left, though a small part of him would always wonder, what if Hinata Hyuga never died? How would his life have been different? Would he have had an actual family of his own to look over as well as the village? Well guys, as you can see, Hinata dying actually had a huge impact on the story, especially if scenario 2 is followed, where the statement of the brother of the Sage of Six Paths is taken as a literal truth, meaning that only Hinata could have saved the world. So what do you guys think? Let me know which what if you guys would like to see in the future, and if I like it enough, I'll write it down and do later. Thanks so much for watching guys, have an awesome day.